Hey, welcome into the Wellness Lab, the podcast that teaches you how to create your own health equation. I started wondering and thinking a lot about my life and some of the things that have gotten me to where I am now and this point in time. And there's a story that I haven't shared in a while, and there's something that I've been, I don't know, avoiding talking about, or just maybe it feels like it's part of my past and it's no longer relevant. But the more and more I talk to people, the more and more I realize that a lot of us are struggling to find out who we are in this world, and maybe even more so, find out why we are here in this world. And if you've ever thought about quitting your corporate job, you've ever wondered, what's my purpose? You've ever had thoughts about what should I really be doing? What am I passionate about? Well, that's what today's episode is going to be about. I'm going to share a lot about my own journey from leaving my corporate job in my 20s to living in stress for many years and pounding my head against the table and trying to figure out who I was supposed to be in the world, to eventually building a seven-figure wellness business, living more in passion, purpose, and ultimately prosperity. Some ways I figured out how to put those all together, because I think there's a narrative out there in this world that says we can't have our cake and eat it too. We can't do what we love and get paid well to do it, and especially then have a purpose in the world. And I want to share that that narrative isn't true. Now, that narrative can be true if you believe it, if you buy into it. Also, what I'm going to share isn't easy. It hasn't been easy, and I don't want to make it sound like it is, because when you're trying to do something different, and let's be honest, going against the grain and taking care of your health, your wealth, your peace, your happiness, are all things that aren't really valued too much in our own world. A lot of it is, what can we do for others? How do we show up in the world that our values derive what we achieve, what we do, who we are, rather than how we are, how we're being, how we're serving. So I'd like to share today a little bit about that journey of going from stressed, so much so that I almost couldn't handle it, and to finding places of more peace and happiness and purpose. That's what I'll do. Let me share for the next 15 to 20 minutes about my own journey from working in the corporate world to now working in the wellness world. When I think back on my own journey, it's funny, and I was thinking the other day, should I share this? Should I make this a post? And the idea I had for this podcast is, how did a beer slugging frat boy go from working in the corporate world to being a wellness teacher? And to some extent, I'm still a beer slugging frat boy. I love to have some drinks, love to hang out with my friends, love to be social, and also love to be healthy and well and take care of others. And those can all live together. But when I was in college, I went to school for business, and the only thing I really ever wanted to do at that point in my life was to be rich and to be successful, to make a lot of money, to be wealthy. And I started to get those things. Out of college, I got a really good job in corporate sales and logistics and management. And I was on the fast track to success. I was pinned as a future executive of this big growing company. And it was kind of everything I wanted, at least at that time. And there was a lot of great things in it. I learned a lot about business, learned a lot about myself, learned about how to succeed, how to work hard. Also learned how to be an asshole. Learned how to run things with an iron fist, how to bulldoze people, how to really let my A personality take control and take charge, and not be a nice person, and to not be someone people liked or respected. They did things for me, and when something had to get done, people in the company knew to call me, and I'd be the bulldog, and I would go in there and I'd be tough and I would get shit done. But after a year or so of that, I started to realize that I'm not happy. I'm not okay. I'm feeling the highest amount of anxiety I've ever felt in my life. At this point, I'm 23, 24, and starting to go through just tremendous amounts of anxiety, and almost not even knowing what anxiety was at that point. And I remember there's a funny story of my brother, who at that time was 18 and he was in college, had moved in with me. And there's a funny story that he tells that he used to call my dad and say, "Hey Dad, I don't know what's wrong with Nick. I don't know what's going on. He's stressed. He's not okay. He's coming home from work and he's drinking and he's like ripping his shirt off because he's so frustrated and he has so much anxiety." And here's my little brother looking at me going, "I don't know what's going on with this guy, but this is the guy I know, and something's wrong." And I think the whispers started to get louder and louder. And it wasn't until actually that a friend of mine, a college teammate, and I played college basketball, so a teammate of mine said, "Hey," he said, "I'm noticing you're not doing well. You're getting stressed. Your anxiety seems to be through the roof, because I've started doing this thing called yoga. Why don't you come with me? And I think it's going to help." And I remember saying, "Okay, I'm an athlete. I'm open-minded. I like to move my body. I'll try it out." And I would tell you right now, the first yoga session I ever went to was at 24 Hour Fitness in Newport Beach, California. And I don't really think it was yoga looking back. It was, some kind of Pilates fusion yoga mix. But whatever it was, it was enough to challenge me. And I remember being in this class, and I barely touched my knees. And I remember being so stiff and so weak and so imbalanced and just going, how is this possible? I was a college athlete, big, I'm strong. And I was so humbled and got a really big piece of humble pie. And I hated it, absolutely fucking hated it. And I was like, this is terrible. But what's so interesting about this, to me at least, is I kept coming back and I kept going back and rolling around and doing these new shapes and poses and being frustrated and being upset that I'm so weak and can't touch my toes, can't touch my knees. And my buddy and I, Brian Spielman, we just started going weekly, and then we'd go get tacos afterwards. We'd go get beers afterwards. And then, we started getting into spirituality and reading about it. And then we'd have friends saying, oh, you can't go to yoga and go eat tacos or go drink beer at the same time. And it was just this fun, really kind of waking up to ourselves. And fast forward maybe 6 months later, I continued to continue practicing yoga and started to realize, okay, maybe this thing I'm doing at 24 Hour Fitness isn't really yoga. And I remember I got a membership at Yoga Works. And this is probably the first time I was around spiritual people. And I'm now 24 and young at this point. And there's not many men in the room, maybe one or two besides me. And it's all women. And I remember being around these teachers and being enamored by them and attracted to them and almost obsessed with them. How are they so different? They seem calm. They seem happy. They move their bodies well, a lot better than me. And during this time, I think it was really a chance for me to kind of turn inward and start to ask myself questions of, okay, who do I want to be in the world? And how do I want to be in the world? And am I happy? Am I not happy? And I started to realize as I started to soften through the practice of yoga and mindfulness and turning inward, I started to show up differently at work. I started to be a nicer manager. I started to be easier to be with. I started being softer and I started listening more. And what I noticed is that people started to interact with me very differently. I was promoted. I was starting to be respected and more from a place that people wanted to work for me, not because they had to, because they liked me. And I had started to notice, as I soften, as I start to relax, people around me start to interact with me differently. And it was probably the first time in my life I've seen this thing about when you take care of your inside world, then your outside world starts to transform. And it was a very cool space of, I'm now starting to understand how I want to be as a manager. I'm starting to understand how I want to be as a leader. I'm really starting to like this combination of being successful and being a manager, but also being nice. And it was this really cool space. And I think I could have stayed in that space. I really do. And because the whispers of this background of, okay, Nick, who are you supposed to be in the world? And is this job in line with your purpose? They were there, but they were quiet. And it wasn't until a life-altering event happened. I was walking home from a Christmas dinner with my friend and roommate at the time, Sergio, who's still a great friend to this day. And we were both wearing suits. And we're in Newport Beach, California. If you know it, it's a really nice, safe area. And we're walking home at 1, 2 in the morning and going to our apartment. And this car drives by us without the headlights on. And I go, something doesn't feel right. Something's off. My spider sense is going off. And Sergio goes, no, we're fine. Don't worry about it. We're okay. I go, okay. Then the car comes by again with the headlights off. And I'm like, Sergio, this isn't good, man. We need to run. And before we could, 3 guys jump out of the car and say, hey, give us all your money. Give us your phones. Give us your wallets. Sergio and I at that point, say, hey, here's our money. Here's our phones. Here's everything we got. And I remember distinctly, one of the guys looks at us and he goes, hey, this isn't going to cut it. This isn't enough. And, what do you want us to do? And so the guys attacked us, mugged us in the streets, and Sergio and I got in a fight for our literal lives. I remember fighting off 2 guys in the streets. It's raining. I'm in a suit. I remember slipping and falling on the ground and it's wet. I'm going, oh my God, if I don't get up, these guys are going to beat me to death. And luckily I'm big, if you've met me, I'm 6'7", I'm 220 pounds. I've got a mean streak if I need it. And somehow I was able to pull from adrenaline and survival and able to fight off these guys and actually able to protect both of us. And I went home and I remember just, feeling so, I can't put words to it, just this feeling of, we could have died. And if they would have had a gun or if they would have had a knife, they would have used it on us. And Sergio and I both took some time and kind of reflected, and he worked for the same company as me as well. And we were both, again, on the kind of path to success. And for me, I remember sitting there a couple days later and I was kind of feeling into this experience, and this question came through. And I've shared this before in podcasts. And the question was, if I would have died, would my life have been worth it? And the answer that came through was from my heart or from source, and it was a resounding no. My life wouldn't have been worth it if I had died in that moment. And this is when the whisper started to turn more into a yell. And I tried to ignore it for a month or so. And I remember sitting at my desk one day, and again, I'm starting to enjoy my work, and I'm starting to hit the flow. And I remember at my desk typing, and my heart, it just said, Nick, you're done. You can't do this anymore. And this may have been the first time in my life that I heard my heart and listened to it. And I remember sitting there going, I want to keep working, but my heart won't let me. And in that moment, I knew it was time to go. And I made one of the hardest decisions I've ever made. And 15 years later, I would say this may be the hardest decision I've ever made in my life still. More than getting married, more than opening a business, more than opening multiple fitness locations, taking risks. Quitting my corporate job, I think, is probably the hardest thing I've ever done, because it involved detaching and releasing so much identity. And if you're, listening, I hope this resonates. There's such an identity wrapped up in who we're supposed to be. And I remember being really revered by my friends' parents at that time of, Nick's the most successful one out of all the friends. He's making the most money. He's the most career driven. And then when I quit my corporate job, I remember those same parents saying, hey, this guy's dangerous. Stay away from him. You can't trust him. We don't know what's going on with him. So there's a lot of identity that had to be released and killed to make that decision. So I think to this day, it's probably the hardest decision I've ever made. And I decided to sell everything I owned. And I got myself a job teaching English in Thailand. And I think at that point, I just kind of said, okay, what can I do to shake up my life? What can I do to just turn it upside down? And that's what came to me. I think I chose to leave, but I think Thailand kind of chose me. And I spent a wonderful year in Thailand teaching English and traveling and learning and sharing and just getting exposed to new cultures. And it's probably it's maybe one of the happiest years of my life ever. At this point, I'm now 25, 26, and it's one of the happiest years of my life. And after a year, I said, okay, well, what's next? And I decided to then move to Korea, and I taught English in Korea for a while, and that lasted a couple months there. And then eventually decided then to move to Mexico, and then taught English in Mexico for about a year and a half as well. And I'm now 28 or so, and I'm enjoying my life, and I'm running around the world. I'm dating women in different countries. I'm partying in all these different places, and people in the community like me, and I've got a good vibe going. But I'm also starting to realize, man, there's not much professional growth at this point. And I had kind of gone away from everything professional and started to chase everything more in like a hedonistic view, just a moment-to-moment view. And I started realizing that train was starting to run off the tracks, and my life was starting to get out of control. And I remember a friend coming to visit me in Mexico, and we were on the train together in Mexico City. And those moments when a good friend says something, not because they want to, but because they feel like they have to or they need to. And it was one of those moments. One of my very good friends, Eddie Patch, says, Nick, what are you doing with your life? What is this? You're lost. And it was an interesting moment because I knew he meant it, and I think I was starting to feel it, and I reflected upon it. And within 2 weeks of Eddie saying that comment to me, I decided, okay, this is enough. I need to move back home to the United States. And if I don't do that now, then I'm going to be 40, and I'm still going to be running around the world and teaching English, not having a lot of purpose, not having a lot of direction or money. So I decided to come back home and restart my life. And I would tell you at that point, I had never felt more lost in my life, and then maybe for 6 months or so, I kind of was able to wing it. But eventually at 28, 29, I couldn't hold a job anymore. I lost all direction about my life. I was no longer able to keep a job, get a job. And I started getting this place of, wow, I don't have money and I'm not happy. Before I had money in the corporate world and I wasn't happy, that was okay. When I was living in Thailand, I didn't have a lot of money, but man, I was happy, and that was really cool. But I'll tell you what, to have no money and to be miserable, that was probably the worst combination. And now I've learned to have money and be happy, and that's a pretty cool combination too. But having no money and having no happiness was by far the worst combination, at least for me. And in my 28, 29, I got to this place where I'd burned most of the bridges of my life with friends and family and intimate relationships. And I'd gone through a yoga teacher training at maybe 28, 29, and decided, okay, what do I want to do with my life? And so let me start to teach yoga. Let me start to share things I've learned. And going through a yoga teacher training, in essence, destroyed my life at that point. Anything I was holding on to, images, identity, who I thought I was, going through a yoga training, I broke those all down. And that was from different poses, different breath works, different meditations, different teachers, different philosophies that really started to deteriorate this world that I thought I was living in, that was stable. And I could see pretty quickly it wasn't. And long story short, maybe 6 months after going through a yoga teacher training, I had no friends, I had no money, $0. And I was in debt probably another 20 or 30 grand. I was living on my mom's couch. And the low point in my life at that point was, I remember my mom coming in and she sat down next to me and looked at me, and I just got this feeling, and I said to her, yeah, I need to go, right? And I remember my mother crying and, looking at me, and she's just, bawling. And I said, it's okay, I get it. I need to go. I've overstayed my welcome and I need to move on. And it was so interesting that staying on my mother's couch and being broke was bad. But for some reason, when my last resource was to go to my dad's couch and to be broke on my dad's couch, that triggered something in me, maybe as a man, maybe as a failure. And I said, okay, if I'm on my dad's couch, if I'm on my father's couch, and I'm broke and I have no money and I have nowhere to go, this is rock bottom. And I remember being suicidal at that point. I remember feeling like I had no purpose, I had no friends, feeling lost, feeling stuck. And I just kept throwing shit on the wall and trying to get jobs and nothing was working. And I'd reached out to friends and they said, hey, we can't help you. We don't trust you. That was really hard to hear. You burned bridges and I can't put my name out there for you because I don't know what you're going to do. And it was a come to Jesus moment. And at that point I said, okay, well, what the heck am I going to do now? I can't stay on my dad's couch forever. I'm going to kill myself if I do. Nothing against my dad, but it was just, it wasn't going to work. And somehow wiggled my way into getting an interview at the YMCA as a sales director. And I said, okay, well, I've got sales experience, I've got wellness experience. Maybe I can somehow, trick these people into hiring me that I can run both. And there was a very cool moment when I was interviewing with the YMCA, which I eventually took this job, by the way. The day that I was going to accept a job with the YMCA, I had received a call from my old company that I had left. And they had offered me to come back. Said, Nick, we got a position for you. We heard you back in the States. We want you to come back. And I remember sitting in the parking lot of the YMCA, and I had these two options in front of me. And it was so interesting because if you've done spiritual work, or if I've talked about it before, whatever we haven't cleared up in ourselves will eventually come back. It's like a spiral, So, for example, if you've been in a bad relationship with a woman named Susan, well, you ever notice that 6 months later you get into a new bad relationship with a woman named Emily, and they're almost the same women, right? Or the same man or the same partner. And what that shows us is we haven't resolved these pieces of us. We haven't cleared up these parts of us that aren't healed. And for me, I came to this moment and I'm sitting in the parking lot and I've got an offer from the company that I used to work for to go back to, which is going to pay me a lot more money, a lot more career trajectory, a lot more security. Or I take this job at the YMCA, which I'm not really sure about, but I know it's more in line with how I want to start to be in the world. It's got more purpose. It's in line with wellness, community, helping others. The other one was just helping myself. And I sat there in the parking lot and I'm just hemming and hawing. I'm going back and forth. I'm like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to take. Both paths could work. The money seems better here. I know this one. And again, my heart goes, Nick, if you don't listen to your heart right now, if you don't listen to what you really want, you're never going to heal this. You're never going to move forward. And man, I'll tell you what, I can feel it in my body. That was a hell of a hard decision. Do I turn down the past? Do I turn down this great company that's going to pay me way more? If I was with them now, 15 years later, I'd be making $500,000 a year. Who knows what, But would I be alive? I don't know. I might have also killed myself by then too. Or have a drug problem, or be having mistresses because I'd be so lost in who I am. And somehow I chose to go with the YMCA and to take that route and take that leap into the unknown to some extent of, okay, let's go with who we want to be. And we don't know who we are yet. We don't know quite what that looks like, but this step is going to get us one step closer. And when you've got a tough decision in life, I think that's the best thing we can do sometimes. Is I don't know how I'm going to get to the end, but what decision right now is going to bring me one step closer to my goal or one step further away? And if you can distill something down into that, it gets kind of easy. Okay, this is one step closer to where I want to be. Let's do it. Let's jump in. And I took that job and I turned down the other job, and I remember thinking, I'm crazy. I'm just nuts in the head. And it was one of the best decisions I ever made. At the YMCA, I learned how to be a leader. That's how I learned how to coach. They actually taught me the skills of coaching, which I eventually started to combine with yoga and coaching together to create something, of a transformational coaching system based off yoga and based off coaching and mindset and wellness. And wow, I wouldn't be the coach I am today if I didn't take that job. And it lasted 2 years at the YMCA, which was great, and I learned a ton. And I also realized at that point, I don't think I can work for anyone. I think I'm actually quite unemployable. And my ego's too big, or my vision's too big, or I don't play well with others, whatever it is. I've realized I can work with people well, but I can't work for people well. And that was an important thing to learn. So after 2 years, I said, okay, well, I've learned a lot from the YMCA. What do I do now? Well, I think it's time to start teaching and really pursuing your dreams and really starting to know who you are. And around this time, I started to get myself around some better yoga teachers and some people that had real life experience. And I met my first true teacher, Jean Mazet. And Jean taught me how to be a great person, how to love myself, how to have more confidence and value and worth in the world. And within 6 months of meeting Jean and working with her, I met my now wife, Emily. Within another year of that, I quit my job at the YMCA. I was teaching yoga all over San Francisco. And again, got to this point of, okay, where do I go next? What do I do? And I could quickly see that I had bigger plans for myself and bigger dreams and bigger visions. And I started to go, okay, well, I'm teaching yoga, I'm doing personal training, I'm doing life coaching, I'm talking to companies. What is this? How do I put this all together? And there's this great framework I found called the Ikigai. And if you're not familiar with it, the Ikigai is from Japanese philosophy. And it's a 4-quadrant Venn diagram. And at the top is, what do you like to do? Okay. On the side is, what are you good at? Over here, it's what can you get paid to do? And at the bottom, it's what has service in the world. So instead of trying to figure out the perfect job, I went through this framework, this Ikigai. And inside it, I was like, oh my God, I can see it. The sweet spot for me would be opening my own wellness company, opening my own wellness business where I can do all of these things. I can coach people, I can lead people, I can make money, and it's going to help my community. And at that point, it became so freeing of, wow, okay, so I haven't been necessarily looking for a job, because at the end of the day, a job's a job. You got to make money. I get tired of coaching. I get tired of teaching. I get tired of running a business. I don't know if that's ever going to change. But what I don't get tired of is serving my mission and my purpose, right? So when you can find this thing, when you can find this sweet spot, the center of not the job you want, but more about what's your purpose. In yoga, they may call it your dharma, your duty on this planet. And when you find that, when you start to learn what that is, then it kind of doesn't matter what you do. It's more about how you do it, right? In any moment, you can serve your purpose. So when I started to see that, I'm like, oh, okay, once I find my purpose, my deeper kind of mission of why I'm here on this earth, that will then really start to shape what the external looks like. And the external kind of doesn't matter as much. And again, it's been challenging. It's been hard. It's taken tons of effort. It's not just, I don't sit in my room and meditate these things that happen. It's like you meditate, you see them, and then you have to go create them. So it's this combination of the spiritual world and this physical world that you can then bring into one. But this journey of ultimately finding out purpose and mission and value, and then having the courage to take that out in the world, that may have been the second hardest thing I've ever done. Because at some point you have to believe in yourself so much that I've got a mission that matters more than safety. It matters more than, being a normal citizen, and it matters more than kind of fitting into the status quo. And I trust myself, and I trust the universe, and I have confidence that this mission matters, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to create it. And there's going to be fear, there's going to be doubt, there's going to be roadblocks. And if there aren't, I'd probably argue that you're on the wrong path, because the easy path now will become the hard path later. And the hard path now can become a much easier path down the road, because in those trials and tribulations, or for me, when I'm broke and I'm pounding my head against the wall and I don't know who I am and I have no friends and I'm feeling like a failure, well, that gets to show me who I really am. What's my capacity? How far can I go? How deep can I get before I say enough's enough? So we don't want to lose these moments. We don't want to lose these chances to find out who we are and to really push ourselves to create something that matters. To create something that gets us out of bed every day and makes us excited about who we are, about what we're doing, and about how we're helping the world. And if you can do these things, if you can put these all together, and if you go back to that Ikigai and you start to get 2 out of the 4, What do I like to do? What can I get paid to do? That's a hell of a start, right? What do I like to do? What am I good at? Great. Okay, now go figure out what work that would be. If you got those three, then how do you bring that into your community and start to help the world in that way? And ultimately, when you help yourself, when you fill yourself up, when you take time to turn inward and think about deeply who you are, think about your mission, think about why you're here, that's how you help the world. And this more enlightened, this more conscious version of you can emerge and come out in the world and go, hey, I'm here. I've got a message. I'm here to shine bright. Who's coming with me? Who wants to be helped by this? And you'll help yourself, you help your family, you help your friends, you help your community, and ultimately you'll help the world. So I hope me sharing some of this journey about, the journey I've taken from being stressed in the corporate world to having more happiness and less stress in the wellness world has been helpful. And I'll put a link in the show too, but I got a 3-part blog that I've written about this. I'm probably due to update it with the 4th part, but it really goes into some of these deeper pains that I was in at this point. And I hope by sharing this with you that I've struggled, that I continue to struggle, and I continue to move forward and create the world that I want to live in. I hope this inspires you and empowers you to do the same. And again, leaving my corporate job is the hardest thing I've ever done. And I get why people stay in it. And if you're starting to hear the whispers, or the whispers are getting louder and you're ready to move on and you're ready to start to explore what does that look like next, give me a call. Let's have a talk. Let's see if we can work with each other. But I will warn you, anyone I coach either breaks up with their partner, quits their job, or makes a major life transformation. And not because it's me, it's because they're ready to make this shifts. And the work we do together can be the catalyst to creating not just change, but actual transformation. So if you're ready, I'm ready. And if you're not, read the blog. Start small. Get a couple books and start to go from there. Anyways, I hope this helped. If it did, please subscribe. Share this with someone who is maybe in a life transition themselves right now. I don't ask for anything on this podcast except for that if it resonates with you, you subscribe, you share it with the world. And as a result, we can help elevate the consciousness of the planet. And we can help people find more health, wealth, peace, and happiness through this process as well. All right. Thanks for listening, and much love.